Please take your seats. Axios Local's Zoom In, Building Affordability in Atlanta is about to begin. Please take your seats. Axios Local's Zoom In, Building Affordability in Atlanta is about to begin.
Welcome aboard.
Please welcome to the stage Axios Local Managing Editor, Mike Sveditz.
Hey y'all, what's going on? Thanks for being here. Look at this crowd. Y'all look great. Everybody got a seat, everybody got some coffee, everybody caffeinated. I've had like 7 cups already this morning, so forgive me if I talk fast and loud, but that's just who I am. My name is Mike Sveditz. I'm the Axios Managing Editor for Axios Local, and it's so great to have you guys here. We're super excited. I mean, being up at 8:30, 9 o'clock on a, what is this, Wednesday? Yeah. You guys, give yourself applause. Let's give yourself a round of applause for being here this morning. Anyway, we got a great lineup for you guys. We're going to talk about housing and affordability here in Atlanta. And if you're watching on our live stream, don't forget to use the hashtag AxiosLive. So as we get this show started, let me bring up Keith Fleming, who is the head of the South Atlantic region for the JP Morgan Private Bank and co-chair of the Georgia Market Leadership Team at JP Morgan Chase. He's going to give us some opening remarks. Keith, come on up. Yeah, bud.
Good morning and welcome everybody. Let's keep that energy high as we go into this. As Mike mentioned, my name is Keith Fleming. I'm the head of the South Atlantic market for JP Morgan Private Bank and co-chair of our market leadership team here locally in Atlanta. My Atlanta colleagues and I are honored to host this important conversation with Axios this morning. And as we zoom in on housing affordability, one of the most pressing issues facing Greater Atlanta today. For more than 100 years, JP Morgan Chase has been proud to serve Atlanta not just as a financial institution, but as a committed community partner. Atlanta is home to 1.3 million of our consumer banking customers, more than 148,000 of our small business clients, and more than 1,800 employees. I'm pretty proud of that because we started just 20 years ago with just over 30 people. So we've come a long way. Our goal is to help build a vibrant, resilient city where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Since 2019, JP Morgan Chase has contributed more than $23 million in philanthropic support to local initiatives, including more than $3.7 million dedicated to affordable housing, preventing displacement and aiding economic mobility for legacy residents. Affordable housing remains a challenge in many communities throughout the U.S., and Atlanta is no exception. As Axios recently reported, between 2018 and 2023, Metro Atlanta lost more than 230,000 affordable housing units. It's a pretty daunting number. With 1.8 million people expected to move to the area by 2050, let that soak in for a second, 1.8 million more people coming to this city. According to the Atlanta Regional Commission, that is, the issue is only getting more pressing. The firm recently made a grant to the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership, which has impacted 640 families and made 370 affordable single-family homes available for homeownership and rental. As proud as we are of supporting that work, we know we need to do more. That's why I'm pleased to announce today that JP Morgan Chase is awarding $1.7 million to the Historic District Development Corporation to expand pathways to affordable housing in Atlanta. That's worth celebrating. There's a lot more work to be done. These funds will focus on helping renters in Atlanta's South Side, downtown, and West Side neighborhoods become mortgage ready and accelerate the construction and affordable homes for low to moderate income households in Atlanta. The investment is part of our national strategy to help increase the availability of homes and expand homeownership opportunities that more people can build intergenerational wealth. Our commitment to affordable housing in Atlanta is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to supporting financial health. We're not only hiring and growing employee base here, we're connecting with the community through our Summerhill branch. If you haven't been by, please come by and see it. It's an amazing thing to see, just by the old Georgia State Stadium. Since 2021, we've hosted more than 700 financial health workshops and small business pop-ups throughout this region. As we zoom in today, I encourage each of you to think about how we can help shape Atlanta's future. Your ideas, your leadership, and your partnership are vital to the city and the region's continued success. Thank you for being here, and let's get the conversation started. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Axios Atlanta reporter Crystal Dixon.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Crystal Dixon. I'm one of your two Axios local newsletter writers. I'm so happy that you all are here this morning, starting your hump day with us at Bishop Station, right near Atlantic Station. So for our first conversation, I'm going to welcome up a leading voice from Mayor Andre Dickens' administration. Please welcome City of Atlanta Chief of Staff Courtney English. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Hey, everybody. Y'all are up early. This is a lively crowd. Y'all look great.
We got the music going,
Yes.
and it's a great day, great weather. So, all right. So, first, Courtney, what exactly is a chief of staff? What exactly does that position entail?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Keeping the building upright. Mostly, my job is trying to make sure that the mayor's agenda gets executed. Everything from our goals around affordable housing, our goals around youth development, trying to keep folks safe, trying to ensure that we build a city that works for everyone, and we do that in an ethical, efficient way and make sure we run government well. And so it's a lot, never a dull moment.
Okay. So the mayor, who was just reelected,
Yes.
I guess last week.
We are very excited. Mainly because that means I get to keep my job. But
Well, the mayor, Andre Dickens, has a goal of creating or preserving 20,000 affordable housing units by 2030. Where is the city positioned? Where is the status of the city in that goal? And what parts of the city that you all are looking at that have not seen that investment yet?
So to date, we have either delivered or in the process of delivery, in the process of construction, 12,000 units of affordable housing in less than 4 years. That puts us ahead of schedule for our 20,000 unit goal. That goal is an 8-year period, and so we're ahead of schedule. So we're super excited about that. But what we also know, and I think it was just mentioned, is that there are a number of people who are going to move to the city. 1.8 million people are going to move to Atlanta by 2050. They can't. I love that level of growth, Metro Atlanta, but they can't all live in Midtown or Buckhead. And what that ultimately means is that we have to create balanced growth throughout the city. We have to invest in neighborhoods that have been candidly left behind for one reason or another. And so we're looking at the south and west sides of the city to ensure that those neighborhoods are able to attract people, that they have the level of amenity that anybody would want, and do it in a way that holds on to legacy residents. And so we launched a neighborhood reinvestment initiative that is designed to do just that.
Speaking of that, you all have just rolled out the Neighborhood Reinvestment Initiative. It calls for extending the life cycle of several tax allocation districts that are across the city, and it's expected to raise about $5 billion in revenue to pay for various projects to close inequity gaps around the city. Yes. What role do you think the NRI plays when it comes to reaching those goals that the mayor sets out for affordable housing?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. So, the harsh truth, and because I love Atlanta, we have to be honest about Atlanta. And Atlanta's a wonderful place. But the harsh truth about it is that for far too long, we have been a tale of two cities. Opportunity is concentrated in a part of the city, and that's great for that part of the city, but far too many people who live below a dotted line from northwest Atlanta to southeast Atlanta struggle. They have lower rates of college acceptance or graduation rates. They have higher rates of diabetes. They have higher rates of being uninsured. There's a 20-year life expectancy gap between 30305, that's the street the governor lives on, or the zip code the governor lives in, and 30318. Those neighborhoods are separated by just 7 miles. And that's really not acceptable. It's not reflective of who we are. I read somewhere that Atlanta was a city too busy to hate. And we can't live up to that moniker with those kind of equity gaps. And so our goal is to really ensure that no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter where you were born, you can thrive in this city. And so NRI is designed, yes, using tools like tax allocation districts to reinvest in neighborhoods and in people that have been left behind. And so we're really excited about that effort. It's been well received by most. I'm sure, there are 1 or 2 critics I can find, but that's fine. I will have a beer with them and set them straight too. But our goal is to build a city that works for everyone, where everybody can live a choice-filled life.
If your idea to extend the TAD over the next 25 years, you're going to need buy-in from Fulton County and Atlanta Public Schools, because this revenue that they would normally receive, they're sort of foregoing it over the next 25 years. How will you convince those entities that the NRI and the TAD extensions are necessary for this to happen?
So I'll say a few things. One, let's be clear about what the way a TAD works. You only get the revenue if you do the project. I'll give you all some very clear examples. In fact, we are sitting in an area that used to be the largest brownfield, the second largest brownfield in the United States of America. Anybody ever heard of Atlantic Steel? So Atlantic, the big, beautiful development behind us that we know as Atlantic Station was the second largest brownfield in the United States. It was a vacant, abandoned steel mill. And this entire area, actually, because of that steel mill, wasn't that great. Let me just say it that way. And it was producing right around $30,000 in tax revenue a year, is really holding the community back. And so we put a TAD on that area, and now we sit here, right? And Atlantic Station is what it is, and it has unlocked the West Side. The point I'm ultimately making is it's not you only get the revenue if you do the project. It's not a foregone conclusion that the revenue actually exists. And so that's number one. That's just, I'm sorry, I'm a teacher. Forgive me. I know it's early and that's really heady, policy, wonky stuff. But it's not like the revenue does not exist if the project doesn't get done. And the project doesn't get done unless you actually deploy the tool like a TAD. So that's number one. Number two, our conversation with APS has been great. It's really straightforward. APS has a 30% mobility rate, meaning 30% of the kids are going to move at least one time in a given school year on average across the district. In the lowest performing schools inside of the school district, that number jumps as high as 60%. So think about that. No matter how much money you invest in teachers, in curriculum, in principal, in school culture, 60% of your students are going to be different at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. At the core of that is an affordable housing challenge. And so you can't solve that issue from inside the classroom. And so ultimately what we're looking to do is deploy the largest investment in affordable housing in the city's history in the most underserved areas in the city to help stabilize that population. It's a long-winded way of saying APS will stand to benefit, our kids will stand to benefit from this effort, perhaps more so than anyone else.
All right. So what are some major hurdles that Atlanta faces when it comes to meeting its affordable housing goal? And how are you all addressing those challenges?
Money. Yeah. So we're grateful to our friends at JP Morgan for give them a round of applause. We like money. So look, 20,000 units of affordable housing is over an 8-year period is a $6 or $7 billion challenge. Period. If you take the cost of construction times the number of units, you get $6 billion. And so, long story short, the amount of money that we need to generate begins with a B. It doesn't start with an M. And so we have to find that level of resource either through the private sector or through government subsidy. The reason we have been able to deliver those 12,000 units, or in the process of delivering those 12,000 units, yes, we've done a lot of stuff around publicly owned land. Yes, we've done a lot of stuff around partnership, but we have subsidized the living daylights out of housing. We've supercharged the system, and now we need more money. And so the biggest challenge, candidly, that we face is we have to find access to additional resources. And so what the TAD extension represents is a $1.5 billion opportunity for us to inject into the housing system to accommodate those 1.8 million people who are going to move to the metro area, or the 200,000 people who are going to move to the city of Atlanta proper in the next 10 years or so. So we need resources. And so dig in your pockets and you can hand the money straight to me on the way out the door.
Oh my God. Hilarious. An Atlanta Regional Commission report released earlier this year shows that Metro Atlanta alone lost more than 230,000 low to moderately priced housing units between 2018 and 2023. Mm-hmm. How will Atlanta make sure its affordable housing goals will reach people across a variety of affordability spectrums? You know, not just people who make 70% of the AMI, people who make, I guess, on the lower end as well.
Yeah, so the long and short of it is that we need housing up and down the economic spectrum. Our goal is to build housing that works for people who are unsheltered, works for the folks who are in what we call the missing middle, and works for folks who are on the upper end of the economic spectrum. Really, we're trying to build communities where the principal, the teacher, and the bus driver can all live in the same place. That's the ideal scenario. And so the developments, the 55 or so projects that we have worked on or incentivized since the mayor has taken office are designed in that way. We launched the mayor's Rapid Housing Initiative. I know Catherine's going to come up here later to talk about our efforts to house the unsheltered folks. We count that initiative was designed to house all 500 unsheltered folks who are living in downtown Atlanta by the end of, or build enough housing by the end of this year. We're proud to say that we have built or in the process of building or acquiring 534 units. So we actually have exceeded that goal. Anybody ever heard of the Melody? So the Melody is a 42 unit complex that was devised from old shipping containers. It was delivered in like 5 months. If you walk across the street, you walk out this nice facility, you go across the street. Version 2 of the Melody is on its way. It's gonna break ground. We're gonna cut the ribbon on that by the end of the year. It's called Waterworks. It'll be 100 units of housing. And so you will, all for the unsheltered population, complete with wraparound services. And so you'll consistently see us do that time and time again.
This actually leads into my next question and my final question. How would all this look like over the next 4 years? You know, we're talking about, ideas and, visions and whatnot. What should we expect to see over the next 4 years?
Yeah, you're going to see us accelerate housing. You're going to see us, we are not slowing down. The mayor's in no ways tired, as the church folks say. In fact, you're going to see us lean in really, really powerful ways. My wife is here, who's also the chief of staff for Atlanta Housing, and they do phenomenal work. Wave at her. Got to say that. Got to be able to go home. Our new chief housing officer is here, Amanda Ryan. She's in the front row. So she's going to be in charge of making sure we get housing out of the ground. The chair of the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation is here. Shani, wave your hand. So what I'm ultimately, I shout out to those people because they are critical partners in this work. And you will see us lean into partnership. You will see us move to develop housing on vacant school land. You will see us move to continue to house the unsheltered population. You will see us pull big levers that allows us to deploy additional resource into the affordable housing ecosystem. And so we're going to do all those things. We're going to do them with a degree of urgency. We're going to do them in partnership with the community. You're going to see us make a really, really big push on affordable home ownership. We believe that our teachers, our firefighters, our police officers, folks who work for the city, deserve to live in the city in which they serve. And so you'll see a big push on all those things.
All right. Well, Courtney, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us.
We nailed it.
Conversation. You got it, yeah. Thank you all so much.
Introducing our View from the Top moderator and Axios publisher, Nicholas Johnston.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Nicholas Johnston. I'm the publisher of Axios. This is my 4th trip to Atlanta in the past 2 years for an event like this, which I think hugely speaks to the amount of support we've gotten from the community since we launched Axios Atlanta a few years ago. So hugely, hugely grateful to everyone in the room this morning who's told you to take some time out of your day to spend it with Axios. Hopefully you're a subscriber to Axios Atlanta and many of our other newsletters, so we're very grateful you're all here today. Also hugely grateful to all of our partners at Axios. There's nothing we do at Axios is possible without the support of our partners. The investments in journalism we make around the country, including here in Atlanta, convening great conversations like this. So huge thanks to JP Chase for being our partner here today. Also a longtime friend of Axios, events we've been hosting around the country. And so I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a View from the Top conversation, a very old friend of Axios, JP Chase's Global Head of Corporate Responsibility and Chairman of the Mid-Atlantic region, Tim Berry. Tim, welcome to the Axios stage. Great to see you. How are you?
How are you? Good.
Let's start big picture. Corporate responsibility can mean a lot. Tell me what it means for you and the bank.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's essentially a collection of tools and disciplines that we have, and it's our government affairs team, our philanthropy team, our institute, our policy center, our community engagement team. All those pieces work together to really localize how we show up, and they all supplement each other. So we think about if we do a report, which we have done, like
Available
Policy Center,
all over, yep.
On housing policy in Atlanta and how you supercharge the building and construction of affordable housing. Our government affairs team will interact with local elected officials. Our community engagement team and our philanthropy team will make sure we're partnering with the right folks on the ground to really show up as JP Chase, as the bank for Atlanta, and as a true partner to try to lend and support the community. And all of those tools support each other and work together.
The conversations we've been having around the country as part of this series are a lot about how the private sector can show up to help communities solve some of the problems facing them. Like, share a little bit of your thoughts of like how you view the private sector as a partner to government in solving city problems.
I mean, even with all the tools that we have as corporate responsibility, the real magic and power of what JP Chase and really many companies can bring is our ability to lend at scale and to finance business growth, housing, the growth of local economies. And I think working with local governments to understand what are the priorities, what do they need, how can we most effectively support the health and growth of those communities is incredibly important. And it's the resources that we bring to that as the full force of the firm is what we always talk about.
I mean, a big piece of this for all these kinds of topics about affordability, about business growth, there's an access to capital element in it. And so I imagine the viewpoint you folks have is like, it doesn't hurt to have essentially the world's largest bank in your corner to help solve some of those problems.
100%. And one of the most important things that we do when you think about access to capital is we always get on the ground and we find the right partners in the community or in the local government that really understand the community. We know we have to show up as JP Morgan Chase and say, we're going to do something amazing and we're going to make all the decisions and we just know everything, right? It's always the first part of that, and what leads to true success is to really find the people that are doing the work on the ground, have made a long-term commitment, understand the communities at a deep level, and then we can tap into all the resources that we bring.
Yeah. This is a housing affordability conversation a lot today. I'd love to zoom in on that. The bank has some news today I read about at Axios Atlanta, some funding deployments that you folks are making. Share a little bit about that and the role the bank plays in housing affordability.
Yeah, so as you heard earlier, we made a $40 million philanthropic grant announcement today. Well, it's $20 million in grants, $20 million in flexible impact-focused loans. And the firm, just this year, has committed $5 billion in debt and equity for affordable housing in the first 3 quarters of 2025. That will create nearly 39,000 affordable housing units across the U.S., including more than 700 in Atlanta. And then, of course, the $1.7 million to Atlanta's Historic District Development Corporation is part of that grant announcement. So I think it's indicative of the work that we do to try to find, some of it's to national organizations, but a good amount of it, probably 3/4 of it, is to organizations on the ground in communities around the country that understand, as I was just talking about, like exactly where should you put your resources and how should you focus.
That comes back to that access to capital. Like, can you find people in the communities that are making a little bit of progress, but maybe just like an extra push, they can do a lot more?
Right. I mean, you heard, I love Courtney's energy. It was a great way to start off. But, you know, he was able to sit in this room and call out 6 people that are just here today, right? That are all pushing forward to try to address what is a huge problem in this country and to address it in Atlanta. And so having people that are really are experts on how do you use low-income LIHTC credits, new market tax credits, how do you think about innovative ways to structure affordable housing, preservation of affordable housing, and then to bring our resources in partnership with those folks on the ground.
What's been great about this series of conversations is we've been in partnership with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and mayors are always so like solution-oriented, right? And so I wonder if there's lessons that you've learned, like what have you heard of cities, what's happening in other cities that maybe Atlanta could learn from, or lessons from Atlanta that you should take on the road to other communities?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like this report, I'll hold it up again.
Show it again.
No, but I think this report actually shows like Atlanta is actually a place that is really committed and has lots of folks that are pushing forward on some of the important elements of trying to build and preserve affordable housing at scale. But as you said, you know, and part of what we do really, because we do this work in almost every community in the country, is to really learn what is working in a certain place, take that learning and try to scale that to everywhere that we do this work. I mean, Atlanta really is, or Detroit really is kind of the origin story for a good amount of this work. In Detroit, there's, I think, a 996-page zoning code in Detroit that the city council and the mayor just did a major reform of, zoning reform, housing density reform, you know, but those kinds of things, those strategies, and some of which is being deployed in Atlanta, but being able to see what works in other cities.
Each of those cities like being a laboratory that you can then share with other places.
Yeah, I mean, I was just last week at a meeting with the mayors of Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Richmond.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how they're all learning from each other. They're learning from other cities. They're pushing forward to try to be able to do this at scale because it is such a big problem everywhere.
Great to get out of DC and have these kinds of conversations like in these communities. Now, before we get the hook here, I want to end on one fun thing.
Time
Actually,
goes
like to end
fast.
our newsletter. Let's end on one Atlanta thing. You spend a lot of time on the road, but you came in last night. What's the best part about coming to Atlanta?
Well, so I've been here twice in the last few months. I think the food, right? So that's top of mind for me because we had an incredible meal last night at Southern National, run by Reggie Washington, who has benefited from our Coaching for Impact program, which helps small business owners. Not only provides the lending and credit for them, but then every step of the way is with them to try to teach them and support them, right? How do you deal with every one of the problems that any small business owner has to deal with on a day-to-day basis? And we do that in communities all over the country. It's one of my favorite programs that we have because it's really like a wraparound support for small business owners.
And then you get a nice dinner.
And then you get and the food, like if you haven't been there, man, was the food great.
All right, if anyone needed a recommendation for later, there you go, straight from the bank.
And he has restaurants at the airport, and he's opening another location and growing. So, like, for me, it's getting on the ground and really like seeing the people that we're working with and that we're able to support and help grow a business, right? You know, all the people that work there, and the growth of that business in every location he opens supports the economy.
That's awesome. Tim, great to see you. Thanks for
thanks,
being
Nick.
here. Huge
I
thanks to
appreciate
JP
it.
Morgan Chase, and we're going to bring Mike out to continue the conversation.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Whoop. Did I drop something?
Welcoming back to the stage, Mike Sveditz.
Hey, hello everybody, once again. And right now, I want to continue the conversation with the leading voice who will speak to Metro Atlanta's Chamber and how the business community is thinking about these issues. So let me bring to the stage now Metro Atlanta Chamber CEO, Katie Kirkpatrick. Katie, come on up.
Good morning.
Sit down.
Good morning. Okay, good. Thank you.
Do you want to try it again? Are we good?
No, I think that was good enough for the
all right.
time of the morning. We're good.
All right. You said before that a strong economy without a strong community, it just doesn't work. You have to have that strong economy for a strong community. How does the housing affordability fit into that equation for Metro Atlanta and from where you sit as CEO of the Chamber?
Yes, let me set the table. I think many of you are probably familiar with the Metro Atlanta Chamber, but if you're not, we have been around for 166 years. And we represent 29 counties, so we aren't just the city of Atlanta. We represent basically North Georgia. And we exist for economic investment and economic growth. So there's a lot of things that catalyze that growth, right? You have to have good public policy, you have to have a great business climate, and then you also have to have great talent, which gets into the affordability issue and housing. So if you think about economic development, it used to be what we would hear from companies that were looking to expand or move and locate here. It used to be about traffic, right? Like, tell me how my employees and my goods are going to get around the region. And then it went to, tell me where my labor is. Like, can they fill the jobs? I'm looking for these certain skills. Do they exist here? And by the way, they do. So if anybody wants to know, we have the most diverse talent base of any major metro in the nation. But now what they're asking is, can my employees afford to live within a certain radius of where their job is? Can they afford to live? We've never had that before. So we're very used to working on the issues around things like water supply or education or transportation infrastructure. We've never ever thought about housing. It's just not been one of those things. So this is new to us because it becomes economic competitiveness now. So while a lot of us think about it as a social issue, right? Because it certainly impacts a broad segment of our community. This is really about a strong business climate. So from a Metro Atlanta Chamber perspective, this is important for an economic competitiveness issue.
You mentioned the 29 county region.
Yeah.
How do you manage all that? And your job as a chamber is to kind of connect people, put the people at the table. What does that look like? Because of the vastness of the Metro Atlanta area, but also in these really important issues that you said maybe we're looking at it for the first time from your perspective.
Yeah, well, one of the superpowers, that's how we talk about it at the Chamber, is our ability to convene and connect individuals, right? So when we think about leaning in on an issue like housing, we start to ask the question, what does it look like across the region? First, we got to start with data. I mean, you can't start talking about an issue unless you understand the foundational data that exists. Two, who are the players? Who's already thinking about this? We don't own the issue. There's a lot of really smart people in this region that have already been thinking about this for a long period of time. How do we get to them to the table? And then three, how do you get the people who make decisions to sit down at that same table? And that is fundamentally important. And I think we can do that. So when you look around the 29 county region, you have entities like the city of Atlanta. We heard Courtney speak. A powerful force in this region because it is the capital of the state of Georgia. But then you can look at entities like the Atlanta Regional Commission, which represent, I think, 14 counties now. I always get the number wrong. And they are doing a lot of housing work with their local governments that are part of ARC. You've got our universities that have really brilliant individuals studying these topics, and you can't overlook our HBCUs, which certainly understand the impact on a broad segment of our population that they are training and teaching. And so we can pull those people together to a table and begin a conversation about what do we have to change? Business, civic, public, philanthropy, how do we change the trajectory? And I can tell you this, if Atlanta gets it right, which by the way, I'm an optimist. I believe Atlanta always wins. We will set the standard for the rest of the nation because we are not the only ones dealing with this. Every major metro has an affordability crisis. And I'll end by saying that you can look at the recent elections and see that it was about affordability. Democrat, Republican, it was about affordability issues.
How do you get them all at the table? You like give them free food? Like, what are we doing? Like open bar situation?
Well, look, we have some great companies here, you know, like Chick-fil-A. If you serve Chick-fil-A, they show up. No, I think it's when you set a good agenda, when you bring the right people together and show who is actually committed to this issue, people show up.
Right. Can you share an example maybe of how a collaboration across business and government actually worked? Do you have any success stories?
Well, we do. How many of you are familiar with Grady Hospital? Right? All of us are. Grady in 2007 was facing bankruptcy and a closure. They were 60 days from closing. Grady is a public institution. It is owned by the people. It also serves the most vulnerable of our population. And so it was too important to let that institution fail. And so the business community worked with the public sector, came together. It was not easy because this was not just a business issue. It was a community issue. It was a social issue. But got together around a table and hammered out what a new governance and fiscal structure could look like at Grady. And if you have noticed over the last 15, 20 years, Grady has soared. The investment in that hospital has really blossomed. And within, I think, a month of us finalizing the recommendations, $350 million of philanthropic dollars went to Grady, and that has continued over the last 14 years. So it's an excellent illustration of how public and private can come together around difficult issues and solve problems. And by the way, that's Atlanta's superpower. We do this really, really well.
You mentioned attracting and retaining talent.
Yeah.
How is that, the housing challenge, intersected with that, with your work on workforce and competitiveness?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we think about job creation and economic investment, we've always thought about, okay, well, do we have the transportation infrastructure? Do we have the roads? Do you have the curb cuts? Can they put a sign on their building? I mean, there's all of these things that go into economic investment. When you think about jobs, for every 2 jobs that are created, you need 1 house. Think about that. Every 2 jobs, you need 1 home, right? So it can be a rental home, it can be a room, it can be a 3-bedroom house, it can be a $6 million house. But I don't think we've ever thought about that from an economic development standpoint. We've thought about talent, we've thought about infrastructure, sewer, water, but I'm not sure at the local level, which housing starts and ends at the local level, we've never thought about, do we have the housing supply for the labor that needs to feed this new business that's coming into our area? And so we are beginning to think about how does the business community influence, get the local elected officials to the table to begin having this conversation about What do we change? Because we have to have more housing, full stop. If you look at the United States, we're 4 million roughly houses behind. That's a 30-year supply 30-year problem. You can't solve that in 1 year. So we have to think about infill. We have to think about density. We got to think about vertical. But we also have to think about 3-bedroom rental homes. I mean, there's this whole wide stock that has to be built. And if we don't get that right, if we don't get the housing right, then it's going to impact our economic competitiveness. And so that's how we think about it. But if there's one takeaway for all of you, every 2 jobs, you need 1 home. How do we do that? That's the real question.
Right. You've led initiatives like ATL Action for Racial Equality or Equity.
Racial equity.
Yeah, and which frame, an inclusion as an economic imperative. How does,
Absolutely.
Through that lens, apply to the housing conversation?
That's easy. I mean, it's 100%, right? Because inclusion is not just about race or gender or sex. It's making sure that you have a community where you belong. And so we have to make sure our communities are vibrant, that they work for everyone. Whether or not you're just coming out of college, whether or not you're a high school graduate and you're becoming a welder, whether or not you're a retiree and you need to be able to maybe downsize and live in the place where you have raised your children. And I see everybody's got sun in their eyes. It just came up. Now, look, I have aging parents. That is where I am in life. And thinking about they have a strong community, how do I make sure they can stay in the house as long as they can? I mean, these are all, to me, existential questions that we have to ask ourselves. And so when we think about equity, this is equity for all of us. And talent, we have the most diverse talent base in the United States right here in the Metro Atlanta region. We have to make sure they can live, work, and raise a family where they also have a job. So super important for us. And we're on the front end of this curve. We don't have the solutions yet. That's one thing I'll say, but now we're invested in helping find those solutions.
Is that one of the biggest shifts that you see, or what is the biggest shift over the next 5 years, whether it's mindset, policy, collaboration, that would make the biggest difference?
I think policy always drives outcomes. So we have to get our policymakers to really understand what's needed. And one thing I will say too, though, it's not just policymakers, it's every one of you in this room. We actually collectively become the NIMBYs. Where they're not in my backyard. Like, it's great in your neighborhood, but not in my neighborhood, right? I want it there, not here. And so we also have to work on changing the mindset of our neighbors about how do we house our workforce, right? I need somebody to serve me at a restaurant, and they want that job, I need a firefighter that's gonna come to my house in a quick time frame. I need a teacher teaching my kids, but I also need an electrical engineer and a computer scientist doing this work. And so we have to make sure those communities work for everyone.
Well, in our last question, I want to talk about football. I want to talk about FIFA. I want to talk about Auburn.
We can sit up here forever.
Right, in Georgia, but
no.
Well, you got two.
Sorry, I have 2 kids at Georgia,
Yeah,
so there you go.
But
I'm an Auburn grad.
So yeah, exactly. So, but what gives you hope? Finally, what really gives you hope? You mentioned Atlanta's superpower. Like, when you look at this, like, how attainable is this?
Really attainable. I am an ever the optimist. I'm a half full kind of girl. That's just where I live. And you can look at the history of this city and this region and see how we have overcome challenges throughout time. And it really is the superpower. I hear this from CEOs all the time when they move into the Metro Atlanta community. Their first comment is, wow, I didn't know that I was going to be held to a standard that we call civic rent. You are by your peers, not by elected officials. Your peers will say, you have to give back. You have to be involved in the community. You have to help solve these problems. And they've never been in a community like that before, where they're sitting maybe with a competitor, but they're putting that aside to help solve the problems. And I think we have an incredible just civic responsibility and ethos here that require us to not leave those behind, but to also help us grow. We're about to celebrate 30 years of post-Olympics next summer while we're hosting the World Cup. I told you I would get that in. And by the way, that means, why do we have the World Cup? Well, certainly it's the world's largest sporting event. It showcases our stadium beautifully, But what it does is it sets us up for another 30 years of success. So how are we going to respond to that? How do we plan for it? And how do we make some of the difficult decisions that some people may not be willing to do? And if you think about building stadiums, I'll end on this. People are oftentimes against building a stadium, and then 20 years later they look back and they go, wow, it's really delivering on what it needed to. You can look at the battery and what it has done for Cobb County, et cetera. And so difficult decisions and difficult choices are what Atlanta and this region can do well. So I'm an optimist.
There you go. Well, a great note to end on. Thanks, Katie,
You're welcome.
for joining us.
Welcoming back to the stage, Crystal Dixon.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome our final guest. She's a leader on housing and ending homelessness in Atlanta. Welcome Partners for Home CEO, Catherine Bassel. Hi. Great. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
All right. So, can you share with us the mission of Partners for Home? And how do you all differ from different housing adjacent related agencies in Atlanta?
Sure. So Partners for Home mission is to create a coordinated crisis response system to end homelessness in the city of Atlanta. And the reason we're different is we were stood up 10 years ago by the city of Atlanta as the quarterback, coach, whatever metaphor you want to use, to lead the community, convene the partners, convene both the public and private sector to create a coordinated strategy to reduce and end homelessness in the city of Atlanta. So we do not provide any direct service, but rather our job is to work alongside of those partners to coordinate them and align and leverage resources to scale housing solutions.
So we now have a new presidential administration in Washington, D.C. And how has that changed your approach to your mission in Atlanta? And can you share if there have been any sort of changes in funding that you all have experienced over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, as of Thursday night, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development released our annual competitive application for funds and has completely dismantled and turned on its head the way in which we have traditionally funded supportive housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. They are shifting away from the housing first approach and forcing communities like Atlanta and over 350 communities around the country to utilizing federal dollars for temporary solutions only. And so we all, both locally as well as nationally, all across the country, are scrambling right now to avoid true catastrophe. We are, as a community, looking at the potential of about 600 households that are currently, were already designated as permanently disabled, who would never be able to go out into the market and sustain rent and obtain a full-time job on their own, who may be facing homelessness in our community in the next year or so.
Oh, that's awful. So, how are you all adapting to this new reality since the affordability crisis in Atlanta has become so stark?
I mean, we were already, as you alluded to, in a crisis moment, locally and nationally. Homelessness has continued to rise, and the direct corollary there is housing affordability and the availability of it in a given community. We know, and evidence continues to suggest, that homelessness is a housing problem, full stop. Of course, there are individual vulnerabilities like mental health and addiction and low income, education. All of those factors impact an individual's likelihood of falling into homelessness. However, a community's availability or lack thereof of deeply, deeply affordable housing requires fewer and fewer vulnerabilities of the individual to fall into homelessness. In other words, that is the reason why we're seeing sharp increases in the number of people who've been becoming homeless for the first time, and the number of people who, in fact, don't have those significant vulnerabilities. Because we are experiencing the evaporation of deeply affordable housing across our community.
All right, so how, you say that you all don't provide direct services, but can you talk about how you are working with those agencies that do provide direct services, and how are you sort of making sure that they're not operating in their own silos? Like, how are you helping them to communicate with each other and so they can share what they need and, how they can work together to, help people who are unhoused?
Yeah, one of our key functions, as I said, is to coordinate and align the system. So we work alongside all of our homeless service providers, soup to nuts, whether it's shelter providers, outreach teams, transitional housing, permanent housing providers, and everything in between. Through work groups, committees, through our governance structure, to drive change on, sort of a sub or individualized basis, if you will. So we have a committee for young adults, we have a committee for families who are homeless, committee for homeless veterans, et cetera. And our goal is to really encourage those providers to think a little bit more broadly than their individual mission. So my mission might be to serve women with infants who are homeless. We really want to encourage those providers to think a little bit more broadly about how do they impact the system as a whole at helping us reduce and end family homelessness, as an example.
Okay.
Similarly for veterans and for people who are living outside. So we want to bring all the outreach partners together to ensure that they're coordinated geographically so that our entire city has coverage from an outreach standpoint.
All right.
So those are some examples of the way in which we work alongside with our providers.
Right. Can we switch gears a little bit to talk about the Atlanta Rising program? I understand it's a goal to help find permanent shelter for people who are unhoused. How many people and / households have been helped so far? And do you all have an overall goal? And do you have a loose timeline as to when you would like to sort of complete that, your mission with that program?
Yeah, Atlanta Rising is our largest campaign ever to support the goals of our current strategic plan, with the key goal of ending unsheltered homelessness in the city of Atlanta. That sounds pretty ambitious, pretty daunting, and it is, and it requires a certain level of investment of our community and buy-in and support from stakeholders across our system. It's a $212 million campaign that has 4 key pillars. One is a focus on prevention. So for the first time, going upstream to try to turn the faucet off, if you will, to try to reduce the amount of inflow of people that are coming into our system on a daily basis. So we're going to begin with some partnership with Cisco Technologies, who've been investing in this space for some time, to go upstream for the first time to try to prevent people from coming into our system. Additionally, the campaign includes scaling housing. So that has always been our North Star and our primary focus, which is how do we develop more housing faster at scale for people who are currently really stuck in our system, but for these housing interventions will not be able to exit homelessness on their own. That includes a partnership with the mayor with the Rapid Housing Initiative, developing 500 units by the end of this year of permanent supportive housing. We launched that with the first refurbished shipping container community called The Melody that many may be familiar with on Forsyth Street. We've since purchased 3 additional properties that are now online that were turnkey. We're developing 2 modular sites, and we're doing a ribbon cutting for the Waterworks site, which will deliver 100 units of supportive housing on December 3rd of this year.
Oh, December 3rd, okay.
That's right.
And it's right around the corner, Waterworks, right?
That's right, yeah, it's 17th and North Side. So incredibly exciting to be able to deliver a very high quality product in fantastic neighborhoods with amenities that are safe, where people who are experiencing homelessness want to live, just like you and I. With those same key objectives. And then the last pillar of Atlanta Rising is a targeted focus on folks who are unsheltered, recognizing that our unsheltered population is extremely vulnerable and really needs targeted outreach support to get off the street and into housing. So our approach is direct from the street into housing. We are starting with a focus on downtown, not because of the World Cup, but to leverage the World Cup and the interest that our community has around this issue. So to date, the milestone is house 400 people by the end of this year. We've rehoused 219 individuals to date, and we're well on our way to achieve that 400. And our goal is to rehouse all unsheltered people in the downtown area by the World Cup by June.
All right. So you mentioned affordability as a factor that could, I guess, increase in person chance of becoming unhoused. What are some other factors that you think would contribute to becoming unhoused as well, aside from affordability?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, one, I want to underscore affordability is the primary driver. When you drive around Atlanta to neighborhoods that have long been deeply, deeply affordable, those units are evaporating everywhere you go. Infill lots in those communities are being developed with $500,000 homes and up. And so that is, in fact, the primary driver. I think the other key things that we really struggle with as a community, we are a very resource-poor community. We have not expanded Medicaid. And unbeknownst to many, and the average person doesn't realize, that people who are low income do not automatically qualify for Medicaid here in Georgia. We refuse to expand Medicaid, and many communities around the country use Medicaid as a payer source to provide supportive services. It's also the entryway into care, into medical care, into behavioral health care. We've done some qualitative analysis of those drivers, and some of the things that came up was lack of access to behavioral health care. Georgia ranks almost the lowest in the country in access to behavioral health care, and we feel that acutely here in Fulton County. Okay. Fulton County is the only county in the state, along with Haralson County, that does not have a dedicated community service board. That's the state's mechanism for providing indigent behavioral health care to people who are uninsured. So we are really lacking access, basic access to things like behavioral health care. Trauma and violence is another factor among people who are experiencing homelessness that often drives them into homelessness. And then the trauma of experiencing homelessness and the inability to access care often prevents them or hinders them from being able to get out of homelessness.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you all so much for being here. And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the Axios Atlanta newsletter. You can go to axios.com/local/Atlanta, and you can sign up there. And you can get my face as well as Thomas Wheatley's face in your inbox every weekday morning. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to see you all at a future event. Thanks a lot.